Well, welcome everybody to our first Fireside chat with Black Excellence in STEAM. I'm so excited and elated to have wonderful Dr. Latasia Jones as will be joining us today. I'm so excited. Let's give her a round of applause just for being here. Thank you so much. Before we get started, I kind of want to recognize a couple people in the room. And when I call your name, please come down front. Zaya, if you'll come down front, please. Heba, if you'll come down front. Erica, let's go. Come on down. You sure? Come on, okay. Come up front, right here. I just want to first recognize the hard work that our student ambassadors have been doing this Black History Month. So let's give them a round of applause. We ask a whole lot of our student ambassadors, but they pull through. And we just want to tell you how much we're grateful for what you do for us. And just to tell a little more about the student ambassadors, I was talking to Marissa yesterday, I'm a navigator. I said, oh, we haven't broke 1,000 meals served on campus. We broke that about a week ago. So right now we've served over 1,291 meals to students and faculty and community on this campus. And if we include brunch yesterday when we were handing out pancakes, we're about at 1,500 meals served. And without these three students who do a lot of the work, that wouldn't happen on this campus. So I just want to recognize y'all and just give you a little token of appreciation, just because that's what I do. So, Heba, Zaya,
Thank you.
and also Erica. Thank y'all so much. And now we're going to have our navigator, Marissa McDowell, who will be taking the lead for the rest of our programming for today.
Thank you, Dr. White. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marissa McDowell. I am the ACO Navigator, and I just want to thank you all for being here and tuning in, and welcome to our first Fireside Chat with Black STEAM Excellence. Now, many people have asked us, why STEAM and not STEM? Well, while STEM focuses on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEAM intentionally includes the arts. Art is interwoven throughout STEM because creativity, design, storytelling, and imagination are essential to innovation. Discovery requires data, but it also requires vision. And today we celebrate that full spectrum of excellence. Today, I would like to first introduce our guest host for our Fireside Chat, Ms. Tina Akinyi. Tina was born and raised in Kenya and moved to the United States right before she turned 18. Living in different countries and several homes, as a young person gave her a deep appreciation for people, culture, and travel. To no surprise, her favorite thing to do is experience culture through travel, food, conversation, and art. She studied engineering at Iowa State University, earning a bachelor's in chemical engineering and a master's of engineering in mechanical engineering, and then decided to work in colleges to make STEM more accessible to students, particularly those that are historically underrepresented in STEM. She has the pleasure of leading the Belonging and Excellence in STEM, or BSTEM, here at North Seattle College, along with her navigator and student employees. Please welcome Ms. Tina Akinyi to the stage. Next, I want to introduce our guest who exhibits Black excellence in STEAM, Dr. Latasia Jones. Dr. Latasia Jones is a program director within the National Institution of General Medical Sciences at the National Institute of Health. Prior to her current role, she served as a scientific review officer within the National Institution of Neurological Disorders and Stroke. She brings 13 years of research, laboratory experience with expertise in molecular biology, biomedical sciences, and neuroscience, along with more than a decade of experience in STEM outreach, education, and advocacy for diversity in STEM. In her previous role as a senior ethics specialist at the American Society for Microbiology, Dr. Jones led efforts to address and update ethical policies to eliminate misconduct within ASM publications. She played a key role in resolving ethical concerns and advancing impactful initiatives that strengthen the integrity across the scientific community. Driven by a mission to bridge the gap between underrepresented communities and the scientific world, Dr. Jones founded Hey Dr. Tay LLC and Hey Dr. Tay Foundation Incorporated and co-founded Changing Faces Incorporated. Through these platforms, she provides expert consultation, mentorship, and educational resources designed to demystify the path to a PhD and careers in STEM. Through her work, Hey Dr. Tay focuses on curating inclusive STEM curricula for K-12 students that is interactive and exciting, mentoring aspiring scientists from marginalized backgrounds to navigate academia, and speaking engagements that translate complex scientific concepts into relatable, high-energy lessons. By humanizing the scientist image, Hey Dr. Tay LLC has become a vital hub for fostering confidence and curiosity in thousands of young learners. Dr. Jones is also an American Association for the Advancement of Science, if then ambassador, dedicated to inspiring millions of girls to pursue STEM careers through outreach, education, media appearances, and advocacy. She has been featured on Great Day Washington, CBS Mission Unstoppable, and several other platforms. A 3D printed statue of Dr. Jones is included in the If Then traveling exhibition alongside 120 plus other remarkable STEM women. This exhibit has been displayed at North Park Center in Dallas, the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., the NIH, and MIT. In 2017, Dr. Latasia Jones made history as the first African American to earn a PhD from the Department of Biomedical Sciences at Florida State University, a milestone that underscores her trailblazing journey in science and education. She also holds both a bachelor's and master's degree in biology from Virginia State University, where her passion for research and science communication first began to take root. Please help me welcome this amazing, intelligent, stellar Black woman scientist who is a definition of Black STEAM excellence, Dr. Latasia Jones.
Ew. Yay, I'm excited for our chat today. It's a fireside chat. We're just going to be cozy. And students, as we go through the questions, for those of you that are watching us on live stream, get your questions ready because we are in the presence of a superwoman, and I'm just ready to learn about your experience in STEM and all the cool things you're doing. Dr. Tasha, thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you all for the invitation.
Yes, thank you. And Dr. White and all of ACO, thank you for organizing this, for all you're doing to enhance equity on our campus. We really appreciate it. So we're going to dive right in. So the first section, we're going to talk about your journey and identity in STEM, because a lot of times as women, as people of color, that truly is a journey of finding yourself in STEM and finding where you belong in STEM. So what first sparked your interest in science, and when did you begin to see yourself as a scientist?
So, funny story, I actually got in trouble, and that's what sparked my interest in science. So during my middle school years, I was playing on the basketball team and really loved basketball. I was half of my family is sports enthusiasts. So I just knew I was either gonna play basketball or potentially create like the first football teams for women or girls in middle school and high school. One of them was gonna happen. And I kept getting progress reports sent back home saying I was talking too much in class. Wow. And my mother gave me, the infamous threat that a parent's supposed to give, which is, hey, if you can't do focus here, I'm going to have to take you off of the team or remove some of the things that you do get pleasure in, which for me, like I said, it was basketball. And of course, I was hard-headed. I was a middle schooler, and many of you might relate. I didn't really listen. So eventually my mom did exactly what she said, and she took me off the basketball team. Now, eventually, because I had all this time that I could no longer put towards all the other stuff that I enjoyed, such as basketball, I had to now refocus and put place back into the places where I was getting in trouble. The progress report that was sent home from my science class. So needless to say, my mom is now, the big person that really pushed me towards my future by making sure I refocused on the things that were more important at that time, which was making sure my scholastic or academic work was up to par and that I was doing the best that I could in those classes. While I refocused in my science class, I realized I really loved the topics that we were covering. And at the time, it was like environmental science, animal science, and so on. And then I was like, I'm sorry, Mom. Like, I may have made a mistake, right? Yes. So with that refocusing, I realized while exploring these topics that I really enjoyed them. I joined a debate team. The first question that I ever received was about chlorophyll, and I got the answer right. So anybody would ask me, like, was it just destiny? Probably, because everything was aligning from there. The first time I realized I wanted to be a scientist, though, is a different story. I grew up thinking that the best careers and the only careers you should truly strive for was to be a medical doctor or a lawyer. Anybody ever heard those things? Okay, it's very popular in a lot of different cultures. And you don't really get to hear about the other careers unless they're in your family already. Most of my family members went into the military or they worked as teachers and stuff, so on, and in those types of spaces. Not one of them had a PhD and definitely wasn't a scientist. So I kind of did my own thing. I went into college thinking I was going to go into the pre-med program and strive towards being an OBGYN eventually. And I saw a flyer on the wall that said, hey, if you're interested in working in a laboratory setting, let us know. We're looking for upperclassmen who can go to the College of William & Mary. So this is while I'm at Virginia State University. And they had this internship available. And I know I wasn't an upperclassman. I was a freshman, really wet behind the ears. But once again, hard-headed. I don't take no for an answer. I thank you for showing me the limitations and the barriers. I'm still going to push the pedal. I kept going to the advisor who posted the flyer. He said, well, you know what, we're taking upperclassmen, but just keep coming back. The deadline was approaching, kept going back to his office. At this point, he knew my name and everything. He didn't know me before, but then he knew me at that point. And he said, nobody else applied. Let's put your application in and see where it goes. And lo and behold, I was able to get into that internship. I worked at the College in William & Mary during the summers. It was actually closer to home, so my mom appreciated that so she could see me because I was not going home once I went to college. And then that really opened my eyes because in that lab was led by a female. And that was my first time seeing a female lead a laboratory setting. And she was doing the hiring, the firing. She was the person they called in order to give their expertise and lend a hand and collaborate and publish with others. So this was something astronomical, never heard before, never seen, definitely didn't see it on TV because before then it was Bill Nye, the science guy, and Steve Urkel. And I never saw myself being Steve or Bill. So that didn't work out for the image that I saw for myself. When I went back my sophomore year to Virginia State, I also met the first African-American scientist that I've ever met to lead a science lab. And she was at my own school. So that further solidified, hey, there might be a space for you and you might belong in these spaces because people are doing it. They're carving the way. And if you sit under them and allow them to mentor you and show you the way, you might pick up some things that'll help you figure out your own path and career trajectory.
Beautiful. And this is actually a perfect segue for the next question because you're painting a beautiful story about identity and representation and how that makes such a big difference in terms of how we feel that we can belong in STEM or other programs of study. So I want to talk a little bit about your experience at Virginia State University, which is an HBCU. So how do you feel your experience there prepared you just in terms of building your identity as a Black woman in STEM? And how did that prepare you for your PhD at Florida State University?
Absolutely. So HBCUs should have a grander pedal and platform than what they really get. They truly do invest differently. And the emphasis and that time and that nurturing that they put into their students is unlike any other place that you can go to. Now, I will say this, I also went to Florida State. So I'm comparing my own story, my own journey, and it might be different for everyone else. But coming from where I was coming from, I wasn't surrounded by African Americans or Black and brown populations of individuals who were all striving towards the same scholastic, academic, and career goals, right? So it was great to be a part of that for 4 to 6 years, so my bachelor's to my master's. It was also great to meet advisors who were invested in making sure that the resources that we don't usually have access to elsewhere, we were able to find those things within our institution at the HBCU. So these are definitely some of those things. And I'll give you an example. So I did too many things, you all. So if I could give a piece of advice, explore as much as you want to, try as many things as you can, because you never know what'll come out of it. But I was an RA, I was a president of an organization. I was doing research in the lab throughout the year and then research in a different lab in the summer. And my advisor, the guy that posted that internship on the wall, he eventually became my official advisor. That's the one I became a TA for. So he became so invested in who I was along the way that I worked under him for my master's. And he was like, Latasia, you need to take some time off.
Yeah.
Because you're not going home. You're not taking, you're going to burn yourself out. And he said, what do you want to do? He said, I have a house in Europe. If you want to go there for the summer, I'll give you the keys. You know, it's safe. Then, do your thing. Take a break, though. And I said, well, actually, I just found out that my family lineage is from Ghana. And I would really love to go to Ghana. And he said, okay, give me some time. I'll look and see what, I could find out here as far as opportunities. He found an opportunity for me to travel with another school and their cohort of students who were going over. And we all taught English, science, and math in the schools. We went to 2 different schools each day. And in the evening, we also took a class to learn about the culture and the economy and so on of Ghana. We traveled throughout Ghana. And that was an experience that really solidified a lot of things for me. I brought little kits and tools to the class to teach some of the little science that I thought would be fun. And I showed pictures of the snow and stuff like that so it can really relate to the topics that the kids were having. And I cried the day I had to leave. Aww. But it really made me understand that this is something that you want to do, and you have to figure out how you're going to get there. So when I returned back to Virginia State University, I applied for PhD programs. So I will say that going to an HBCU, the nurturing, the investment, and the literal connection in your network to the places that you want to go are a lot more intentional, and at least it was very intentional for me. To this day, I can call back my advisors. They know my name still. Because the ratio student to teacher, it makes it appropriate and viable in order for you to have those relationships and for those relationships to be longstanding. It's as if I gained aunts and uncles along the way. And that's what I really appreciated about going to an HBCU and having that culture. And it really helped solidify what I wanted to do.
What a beautiful story. Where in Ghana were you? Accra?
Accra and a few other places.
Ghana is one of my favorite countries. One of my friends got married there, so I got to visit. Nice. Beautiful. Okay. So can you share a moment in your academic or professional journey that shaped your identity in STEAM?
In my professional?
Yes, or academic journny.
Ooh, okay. So I have so many stories, y'all, but I'm going to stick to one. So during my postdoc phase, I don't know, everybody know what a postdoc is? Okay. So
Some
during
of our students might not know.
Okay, so just in case, after the PhD phase, you usually continue your career or your research in a different lab. If you want to explore in a different lab, you may stay in the same lab, but because it's after the PhD phase, it's called your postdoc time, your postdoc tenure, whatever else. Sometimes it's a different position title that they give you as well. And this is the time to really build up your independent career where you're doing more research, publishing more, networking more, figuring out where you want to go, navigating that career scene, seeing where you want to solidify and start your lab. At the time, I still thought that I would want to start a lab, but I really didn't get a chance to explore careers, honestly, because one thing that I will say in STEM, Unfortunately, there's not a lot of career exploration outside of academia. And for a long time, that's what, the main goal was for a lot of individuals. Well, now that the markets are saturated in a lot of places, and because the newer generations are like, I want to be more, I want to do more, I want to, maybe be a science communicator or something else, these career choices are changing. They're evolving with the people that are coming out of these spaces. So there was an opportunity for me to work with the Ronald McDonald House Charities, and I started a program called Young Scientist Wednesdays, where I would wear my lab coat and I would work with the kids that were in one of the patient wings of the hospital that I was serving and doing my postdoc in. When I was working in the Ronald McDonald House Charities, I was working and doing my volunteer work. So I felt like it was a great time to collaborate with them as well and bring out the passion fuel within me and bring the stuff that I really touched in Ghana, bring that into now my own space and create my own initiatives. That's when I realized STEAM itself could really do a lot of things and open a lot of doors and fuel the passion that I have inside. I now created spaces where kids that have not been able to go to school for years could sit with other little kids who have not been able to go to school for a while as well, and serve as like students to each other while learning about STEAM topics and learning from mentors in STEAM careers. And this is when I realized, first of all, you're enough, right? What you have already acquired is enough. Second of all, don't wait too long on your passion, because a lot of times you wait too long and then your passion burns out. You get caught up with other things, and then eventually you forget what you really wanted to do. So that Ghana dream started to come back to life and into fruition in the space that I was already in. And it allowed me to uplift those kids who, they weren't thinking about much other than trying to be healthy, wanting to go back home and so on. Now they had times to spend smiling with their parents, with other kids in spaces where they also happened to be learning something critical, like the AI of neuroscience, how the pottery and centrifugation is all math and science and engineering. So plenty of different things that they could do, and it really brought out what I could do through STEAM for others.
So cool. Thank you. Everything you've shared so far has been very positive. And I'm curious, did you face any challenges? Were there any valley seasons in your journey, in your STEAM journey?
Many. Where do you want to start? So I will say during undergraduate years, of course, and I do feel like it makes sense for anybody in order to properly mentor or to inspire others, you have to talk about your downfalls, the times that you were in error or created an error or mistake, and how you pick yourself back up. During my bachelor's, the biggest thing that I always share is I graduated with a 2.99 GPA average. Killed my soul. Organic chemistry. Do I have to say any more? Okay. But I didn't allow that to make me stumble or stay in that spot of feeling defeated. Instead, I said, okay, let me stay at Virginia State University and prove to anybody that sees my resume, my CV later on, that I am well equipped to be within the STEM field. So let me pursue my master's. Master's is going to be higher degree of level of those courses in STEAM. So why not? Graduated with a 3.75. So now if somebody says, oh, but you graduated with a 2.99 here, organic chemistry stayed there, defeated that 3.75. Any other questions, right? So that's one way of picking yourself up. That was my undergrad going into my master's. PhD level, I will say the biggest things that I suffered from was microaggressions, feeling alone by myself, potentially not feeling like I belonged in the space, because as it was stated in my bio, I was the only African American in that space. There wasn't even professors, PIs, no one there that looked or resembled anything close to me, not Black, not brown, anything. So a lot of times I had to figure out how to motivate myself in those spaces, because even if I found somebody that might listen to the stuff that I was going through, they didn't have similar lived experience. And I do believe that mentorship, one pivotal part of mentorship, is finding the people that have that lived experience, that they can relate to you and provide that way of navigating your journey around the things that really challenge you, so that you don't feel defeated beforehand and you figure out how to get past those challenges. So I definitely would say that. Now, postdoc phase, blatant racism, discrimination. And then I decided, hey, do you even really want to be in a laboratory setting to have to deal with this? Yeah. So I found my way out of that, and I decided to work for the government. And a lot of the biggest reasons why I navigated that way is because I want to make sure the spaces that scientists, engineers, technologists, mathematicians, anybody goes through from after me, that they'll be safe, that there'll be checks and balances provided, so that way those barriers, those things that I went through, others will potentially not have to go through, and there will be programs and resources available for those individuals so they can navigate it a lot smoother than I did. So definitely there's gonna be a lot of hurdles along the way. I always ask myself though, would there have been a first African-American to earn their PhD from the program that I did if I would have quit? Mm-hmm. Would there have been the first PhD in my family if I would have quit? And then a lot of my family members decided to pursue degrees after me. Would they have pursued those degrees? Right. Would those cycles have been broken if I would have quit? So you really have to ask yourself, and I don't want you to put yourself in a toxic relationship. Hey, it's about your peace at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. If it's not for you, don't push yourself too far. But if you quit, are you going to lose more than if you stayed in the game?
Amazing. And you bring up a good point about space and community. And I think a lot of our students can relate to this, but how do you go about building a community space that is tangible, helpful, and still helps you move towards your goals as a student?
Great
How
question.
did you do that? Mm-hmm.
Great question. So I really do believe that it takes a village. And my village is, even in my age that I'm in now, because I'm still very young, you all. Yes. So even at my age, I do believe in still having mentors, still listening to those who have more wisdom than I do, and so on. Now, I might not necessarily move the way they want me to move every single time, but I do want to lend my ear and listen to the advice and guidance that you have, because you have already walked that path. What a lot of us have to remember is times change. And with time changing, individuals have to change as well. So there's different ways. I said this saying to a high schooler the other day, and she did not know what I was saying, so I'm not going to say it today. It was like, there's multiple ways to skin the cat. Please, I don't want to hear somebody not know that saying. But there's multiple ways to do things in life, right? So listening to somebody and maybe advancing how they may have figured out their path, and then deciding whether or not you want to do that. For me, a lot of the times I filled in the gap of what I did not have by making sure I found the people that I needed to be there and told them straight up and directly, hey, I need a mentor in this. Can you help me? When I did my dissertation for my PhD, there was one slide with a whole bunch of names, and none of them were my advisors. So it went from people who listened to my PhD dissertation defense the first time, the second time, the third time. It was, family members, friends, the people that I went and started to hang out with because I couldn't find that camaraderie at where I was at. Finding those spaces was very important because it made sure that I stayed there. It made sure that when I was down and I was like, I'm ready to give up, they were like, no, you got this. Go back in the game, So finding those people is very important. If you know that you're in that space, figure out who needs to be there or what you need to be connected to in order to keep you pushing and keep you going along your journey and the direction that you're trying to go. So I hope that answered your question. It
does.
Okay.
It totally does. And later on, we will be talking about mentorship and leadership, and I'm sure our students are eager to hear that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to founding Hey Dr. Tay. So could you tell us what inspired you to launch Hey Dr. Tay, and what gap are you hoping to fill through this initiative?
Absolutely. So it's to me, I feel like Hey Dr. Tay fills the void that I did not receive when I was the young Black girl that did not know that you could be a scientist. There's so many of us that still, to this day, there's things that I haven't explored yet, right? And when I hear from older generations, they'll say, I didn't even think that one day there will be female scientists or, Black female scientists or Black or female in any of these spaces, right? So imagine the spaces that you all are going to open up for the next generation or the generation after that, which once again, if you quit, are you going to open that space up for them? So thinking about all of those things. So hey, Dr. Tay, and hey, so I have a lot going on here. I have an LLC, I have a foundation, which is my nonprofit. I've also co-founded Changing Faces. They're all working together to make sure that those next generations have those opportunities to explore who they can be, their full potential in STEAM, potentially in STEAM, right? And sometimes I do collaborate with other individuals. So a lot of times the hot topics are like sports. So what's the STEAM in sports though?
Yeah.
You know, because STEAM exists in every space.
There's a lot,
And a lot of times we like to isolate and put things in different corners and so on. But a lot of the things that we do are connected to other things. And it's just a different way of thinking, a different way to be inspired. We bring in mentors to make sure that the kids or anyone, the young adults, get to see people that look like themselves in these spaces. We also talk about relatable topics, right? So if I have a hematologist or somebody that's really big on genetics and blood, why aren't we talking about sickle cell, you know, if we're going to be around Black and brown populations? So making sure that the topics that we have at the forefront, making sure the mentors we have at the forefront and the programs and the activities we doing and are exploring are very intentional depending on the audience that we have. It's very necessary to provide these opportunities because a lot of times we've never had them in these spaces. Yes. And I really think about a project that MBT or My Brother's Teacher and Hey Dr. Tay did recently where we brought out a cyber analyst to teach the youngest kid in the room was 17 months and the oldest kid was probably 8 or 9. And she taught them cyber security topics. And I think about stuff like that because a lot of times I didn't know what cybersecurity was. Anybody know what cybersecurity was at 17 months? Okay, what about 8 or 9? Right. So think about the advancements that we are now providing in these communities that would not be given this if they didn't have the money or the big names, the famous people, the support that usually a lot of these places would have in order to bring in that type of infrastructure and education. We're building and bridging those gaps and making sure that everybody has a chance to get to the table. Yes. And we don't care about the tables that already exist. We're making our own tables.
Yeah. Lovely. And you also bring up a good point about early exposure, right, which is huge in STEM.
Absolutely.
A lot of data and research, as you probably know, shows that if students are exposed to STEM at younger years, they're more likely to pursue those degrees. Right. So what has been the biggest lesson you've learned as a founder? And what have been some of the impacts that Hey Dr. Tay has made on local communities?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing is that I said this earlier, but you are enough. What you have already acquired is enough, right? And if you don't have something, you acquire it along the way. There's many times where I meet people and they're like stuck on making sure their idea is perfect, making sure that, you know, what they're doing has all the bells, the whistles, the I's dotted, the T's crossed. It's not necessary. The biggest thing is to make sure it's coming from a good place and that it's going to help the community that you're trying to help. A lot of times passions die because they never got out the door. Yeah. And I don't want you to stop yourself because it's not the perfect picture from the beginning. Hey Dr. Tay isn't perfect. And I don't expect Hey Dr. Tay to ever be perfect because kids change. All my audiences change. Look, Hey Dr. Tay has been in front of the babies all the way to I think my oldest person has been like 72, right? And just talking to them about various things. Hey Dr. Tay is never going to be the most perfectly crafted anything because people aren't the most perfectly crafted anything. So the first lesson that I learned was you are enough. The second lesson that I learned is don't allow people to navigate your space and what you're trying to do. As long as it's passion-filled, you stand 10 toes in your decision to move it forward the way you want to move it forward, right? So a lot of times people will say, aren't you tired of helping the communities that can't afford to bring you out? Well, that's the communities that need me the most. So who am I to say, yeah, I'm tired, let me stop. Let me be like everybody else. Yeah. Right? So don't be afraid to sit in that space of being alone because your passion calls for you to be alone in that space in order to help the people that usually aren't helped. The third thing I would say is remember to always check in with the people you're trying to help as well. because your passion and your gift and the activities and what you're trying to do for your community is only as good as the community and what they received from it. So if you're not checking in and surveying whether or not they're learning, if they're excited, if they really even received anything from your interaction with them and whomever else you bring to the forefront in that program, then you might not be doing what you really want to do. And with STEAM, it's so important because there's so many parts of STEAM. Even the A, I know a lot of times we don't talk about art enough, but without the art part, a lot of medical doctors wouldn't know what things look like before they actually put their hands on the stuff they need to practice with in order to cure stuff or diagnose or so on. As a scientist, I've published. In order to publish and to make sure all my audiences know what exactly I'm talking about as the expert in whatever field or whatever topic that I'm talking about in that paper, there needs to be images, there needs to be figures. These things call on that creativity and making sure that I'm bringing all my audiences with me as I teach them these new principles and what's part of my expertise. So very critical topics across the board, but is my audience still with me as I go in that direction? That's very important to tap into.
Amazing. You're so cool. I'm like fangirling right now. And actually want to piggyback off on what you mentioned about like science communication and writing and presenting your work. And of course, science communication is a powerful tool. So how do you make complex topics relatable and digestible?
I love that question. So I actually had a project that I worked on with PBS. It was like a multi-million project. And what I love about it is we tapped into the things that we already knew about people. We know that most likely the kid's gonna wanna pick up the iPad, the PlayStation, or turn on a TV before they're gonna wanna learn about science, technology, engineering, or math. It's just inevitable, right? So how do you really connect with an individual that already has that embedded in them or just in them to do as part of their natural chemistry? So the first thing that we think about is making sure they have the space and understanding of how STEM is related to anything and everything. And then making sure that we bring that out of them a lot of times actually involves the art piece, right, of STEAM. So attaching that art piece gives them an opportunity to put their hands on something on their own and make it their own thing first. So I did make reference to the cyber analyst session we had recently. The kids used invisible ink and put codes in their paintings in order for them to learn about decoding when it comes to a cyber attack, right? Who would have thought they would have had fun through art to learn STEM? So a lot of times just bringing those connections and bringing them together in order for them to have their hands on stuff, which is a big part of making sure it's fun as well, making it interactive, making it hands-on, but keeping it fun the whole way. As the audience grows, of course, the topics, the terms become a little bit more matured. You could use the bigger terms. My younger audience, I'm not talking to them about hydrophobic and, GTP, cyclohydrolase 1, and so on. I'm not talking to my 17-month-year-old audience members about that. High schoolers, maybe. They might actually understand the dopamine pathway. Actually, nowadays they do in middle school and up. So making sure you understand your audience is another thing. Keeping it fun and relatable. I like to bring in little surprise things for the students. So they like to do little hands-on experiments. I usually don't tell them what it is. I'll have them volunteer. They'll come to the front. I give them lab coats, goggles, gloves, and then I'll tell them, be careful, don't sniff that, don't do that, but I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Whole time they're probably just doing an elephant toothpaste experiment, but they don't know, and because of the mystery of not knowing what's about to happen, it keeps them involved and invested in what they're learning during that session. Y'all do not know how many times I have gotten the students with that one, but I love that because it keeps them invested in what they're listening to, and then when it bubbles up and so on, they're like, oh, okay, I've seen this before, but now you've gotten through the whole session that we sat here through. So. Making sure all of those things are intact, and then really just tapping into my audience is the biggest thing as well.
I love it, making science tangible. And now I'm curious, do we have any STEM students?
Yay.
Okay, I know that's computer science back there, and we might have some online. But I'm curious, what advice do you have for scientists who want to build their public voice?
Ooh. I say make sure that you come as your unapologetic self. We are now living in a time where you can be whoever you want to be. and present yourself the way you are in whatever space that you want to be in and thrive in. If that is essentially what you want to do, make sure you show up as yourself first, and always make sure that what you are doing and what you are saying is for the goodness and the advancement of whatever topic you're trying to push forward. If it is not bringing those things forward, please rethink what you're doing, but always show up as your genuine self in all of that. There are science communicators that I actually follow, and I love them. There's one that does like fashion modeling in the lab. There's another one who makes raps based off of the topics of the things that they're doing within the lab. So anything from PCR to cells, separating cells and feeding cells, he makes raps for. I love that. Why? Because Dr. Latasia Jones used to sing while working under the hood. She used to love to wear, back then they made us wear these long, if you had a dress on, it had to be long because it had to cover the majority of your body in the lab, and then you had to put the lab coat on and everything. So, you know, I love still dressing up and being this person even within a lab. In the 70s, that was not allowed. These things were not allowed. So I would say to those who are carving their way in science, technology, engineering, art, math, show up as yourself.
Yeah.
Because we appreciate you, and it inspires us to continue to make sure the spaces are available for us to all show up as ourselves as well.
So good. And people are drawn to authenticity, right? So if you want to build your voice, just be yourself, be authentic. I want to go back to the conversation on mentorship and leadership. And I'm curious, what does meaningful mentorship look like in STEAM? And how can students go about finding mentors?
Absolutely. So I think the best mentorship looks like mentorship where both of you understand that you're both in a mentoring relationship. Okay, that's the first thing. As a mentee, there are responsibilities, and as a mentor, there are responsibilities. It's not unilateral. It is a bilateral situation where both of you are benefiting mutually. The mentor is gaining experience. They are finding some type of, what's the word I'm looking for? Positive like feeling for being able to help you out. The mentee is being guided. And then if you do an amazing job, which my mentors always like to say this, they love bringing up my name in different spaces because now I am bragging rights, right? So if you do an amazing job as a mentee and you actually accomplish the things that you set forward, the mentor's name is most likely going to be affiliated with yours along the way. So it really helps them to build up their resume, their CV, and their track record in what they've done. Finding mentors, as I said in the past, I bridge gaps by finding mentors because I do believe that it takes a village. And I know a lot of times when we think of that slogan, it's like for a kid. Well, I think we're all kids, honestly. If we're still exploring, and if you really take on this lifelong trajectory that I have taken to learn for the rest of my life, then technically, in some things, you're still going to be a kid. In engineering, for example, I am an infant. I have no idea what's going on in engineering. In cyber life, coding, I have no idea how to code. So I'm an infant in coding. Now, neuroscience, I'm like a grandmother, right? So I get differences in different levels depending on what we're talking about. So in knowing those things, I like to bridge the gaps in the things that I might not do my best in. And I honestly would recommend just being direct and asking people for help, because a lot of times that is the best way to navigate this. I'm going to find you on LinkedIn. If I know somebody that may know somebody that may know somebody, I'm going to connect with them first and see if they can connect me to the person that I really need to talk to. I also love informational meetings where we sit and chat, especially during COVID. We sit on Zoom for like 20, 30 minutes while you're having your lunch, and I would just bug you by asking you all these questions that I've already noted that really would help me figure out how I want to move in my own path. A lot of the careers that I found after my postdoc was because I asked people who were in the admin side of being a scientist. They were no longer in the lab. They had PhDs, but they now figured out they didn't want a lab. They didn't want to work in a lab, so they moved elsewhere and were very fruitful in these other careers. So I talked to people in policy. I talked to people at the Hill. I talked to people in government. I talked to people in a lot of different spaces to kind of figure out where I would feel comfortable. And we all did it over lunch. And it was a lot of lunches that I had, but I had a lot of information that I could carry with me now. And then because I was so enthusiastic and I had these questions prepared and they already loved the energy in that interaction, they said, let me get in touch with this other person so I can connect you to that person. because a lot of the things that we do in STEM is network. When you go to conferences, you're networking, you're talking to people about what you're working on. You're potentially about to collaborate with them, or even just spend some time working in their lab or them coming to yours. These connections are really what fuel you forward, and all of those individuals fill in a gap somewhere. So it's just a matter of finding those people and being very direct about what you're asking for, but also understanding your responsibility as a mentee and making sure you keep those relationships as you go, because you never know when you need them later on.
Yes. Okay, so I have a yes/no question.
Oh, okay.
Should every college student find a mentor?
Yes.
Okay, noted. And we have a lot of college students here, so I hope you're taking notes. So now as we wind down, Dr. White, can I just have a couple more minutes as we wind down? So I want to talk about your vision and your legacy. If you could redesign science education from the ground up, what would it look like?
Science education from the ground up, if I could redesign it, we would start very early with already exploring those big things and not be too afraid to explore those big things. Meaning like having those, maybe as middle school, elementary, having mini lab setups for those age groups. Maybe not the ones that we have in high school, right? You're not dissecting pigs, but anybody ever been to an aquarium where you can put your hands in the water and you can touch like the little, I don't know, sometimes it's like stingrays and stuff that you can actually touch? Bringing those into the classrooms a little bit more, having that a part of the curriculum early so that we can explore those things. And as we go further, I would definitely rebuild STEAM to include careers that we don't talk about enough. I know it was cited earlier, which, by the way, this is a little version of the orange statue that I have. So a part of the If Then initiative, which was stated earlier, there's 120 plus of us that are women in STEAM careers, and all of us have different amazing careers, and our biggest thing is trying to inspire the next generation. So one of the initiatives that took place was creating 3D life-size statues of us and circulating them throughout the US in order for us to have this moment to kind of be like on stage, but have a chance to meet people and talk to them about the careers that we have. Well, through that cohort, I got to meet shark scientists, bear scientists, all types of people. There's a girl that I met that works at Spotify, and she does the data and analytics in the background. Who knew that was a career you could have in STEAM? Right? So I would really love, if I could rebuild STEM and the curriculum around STEM, I would make sure we had more of those things emphasized, the careers we don't talk about enough, so that way all of us can really say, okay, I've now explored anything and everything possible in STEAM, and I know it's not for me. Or they would just say, there's so many things there, and I see myself in so many of those places. So let me try to move forward in those spaces and see where that can go.
Yeah, so good, so good. Final two questions. I'm going to like lump them into one. What does success mean to you at this stage of your journey, and what legacy do you hope to leave in the science community?
So that's a great question, and it's going to be the same answer for me. Success for me and the legacy that I want to leave is to make sure that anybody and everybody that I come near that hears my story, that participates in any of the programs that I'm a part of, or even anything that I just help and advise, or they read something of mine, maybe they've Googled me, whatever else. I just want them to be inspired. I want them to be inspired to not be like Dr. Latasia Jones, but to figure out who they want to be and to be brave about it and unapologetic about it, right? A lot of times I was mocked for being the Black girl in the lab, for sometimes having the headphones on and maybe I'm listening to Biggie Smalls or some go-go music while working with cells and cell cultures. That's who I am. This is who I am, and that's okay. Yeah. Having the makeup on and still going into the lab and putting PPE on, right? And working with mice, right? Yeah. These are all things that are a part of me. Yes. I can be the girl with the makeup on and likes to sing or rap or dress up and still work with rodent models in order to cure diseases. That's okay. Yes. That's okay. Yes. So if I can inspire anybody, I think that's a job well done enough for me to feel satisfied as far as my legacy and as far as the mission for, hey, Dr. Tay, but more importantly, just for Dr. Latasia Jones. I've worked very hard to move the pedestal as much as I can and to create opportunities and make sure people know that even if you don't feel like there's a table for you where anybody's pulling up a chair for you, that you can make your own table.
Yes.
And you can pull up chairs for the people you want to invite there, and you can do the things that you want to do. If it's not, hey, Dr. Tay, it might be something else. But the most important things is whatever fuels your passion, right? We work very hard for our careers, but is it making sure that you feel fulfilled?
Yeah.
And I think that's the important part of my legacy and what I want to leave with anyone and everybody that I come across.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Tasha. Thank you so much. Thank you. This makes me want to go back to college and be a STEM student because I needed those words when I was a college student. So now we're going to open it up for Q&A. If you have questions, you can just come down to the stage, Dr. White. Yeah. So if you have any questions for our doctor here, then I'll just hand off the mic. Are you going to do the mic? And I don't know if we have some questions on the live stream. I think Dr. White can read those out as well.
Okay. If you can also tell me your name and what degree are you working towards, that'd be nice.
Hi, my name is Zia. I am a psychology student right now.
Okay, psych.
So not STEAM, but you're very inspirational.
Thank you.
I love how you were talking about mentorship and like you really need to establish that mentor-mentee relationship. So as a psychology student, are there any people you know that could be my mentor?
Oh, in psychology?
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is what I would ask you to do. Find my LinkedIn. It's under just Dr. Latasia Jones. I know that sounds rough. Just find my LinkedIn and send me the message, and then I'll just go ahead and send you some names. Absolutely. Absolutely. But see, that's a direct example of being direct to find the mentors that you want. There are people that know people that know people. Anybody else? I promise I won't bite.
Start with your name.
All right. Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm a computer science student here.
Okay.
But I'm very passionate about philosophy.
Ooh.
So I came very late, so I only caught a little bit of your talk. But I think the area I want to get into in computer science is pioneer. It's going to be pioneering. I want to be aware of the human effects of computers on us. And so I guess my best question right now is how do you deal with the uncertainty of not having a guide, and move forward, and how do you find that footing?
Absolutely. So you said understanding the effects of computers on us. First of all, I want to say you're absolutely correct. You're going to be pioneering something different, but I would want to make sure that you leave here knowing that's going to be a significant project that we're all going to need to know and understand later on, especially because COVID hit us and we relied on computers a lot more than we ever have before, right? And now the whole AI interface that's happening, there has to be a lot of different changes going on within our brains, within how we even just conduct ourselves on a daily basis. So there's going to be a lot of information that you're going to become an expert in that we need to know, especially for future endeavors, future advancements, and so on. So an example that I want to bring to you is, so during my PhD dissertation, I worked on, I'm going to break it down because we don't have enough time, but I worked on something that completely reversed what we thought of as the dogma, what affects us genetically. We already had an idea of certain things affecting us genetically. So it usually would be like DNA mutation, something happening on a mutation level there. And I was showing something completely different that a lot of the papers, a lot of the disorders that were being explored did not show. Furthermore, I worked on, I mentioned it earlier, GTP cyclohydrolase enzymes. So it's essentially a part of the beginning of dopamine production. It's very necessary for this to be there in order for dopamine to be produced. And as a result, sometimes it creates a disorder called dystonia. Some of you may have heard of it. It's similar to a lot of the other movement disorders where it's very debilitating. There's some differences as well. I worked with a subpopulation family within Boston on this research project. And in my project, I had to show people that I get it. Years of research has shown you otherwise, but I'm telling you what I have learned in my own experience, in my own research in this lab. So I would say to you, you might create a blueprint that a lot of people did not know existed. But there's somebody that might have that same blueprint and something completely different, and they're going to be open to your ideas, right? So don't give up because of the scarcity of the information. And definitely don't give up because of the bravery and courage that you'll have to have in order to be in that space by yourself, in order to figure out something we really need. As a result of my work, I created an antibody that allowed for early diagnosis of that disorder for that family. The manifestation of that disorder starts at kid age. So while they're in their youth time. So a lot of times they are now debilitated to the point where they're in wheelchairs. They have these abnormal postural positions where their arms and stuff are twisting, lots of pain and so on. Wouldn't you feel better as a parent to know that your kid is potentially going to have this early on so you can prepare? I was able to provide that. Now imagine me saying I'm scared because everybody said that what I'm talking about is not true, because it doesn't exist, right? So be okay with being in that space and be inspired by the fact that you're going to make change because you're in that space and somebody else wasn't brave enough to do so.
Can we get a round of applause for Dr. Latasia Jones and Miss Tina Akinyi? I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, your mentorship is so incredible, and I'm glad that you're able here to impact the students that we have here at North Seattle College as we move forward to make it an equitable and safe and inclusive environment for all students, faculty, and staff. In closing, I want to say thank you so much for attending our event. Please, this is just the beginning. But once again, thank y'all so much for coming here. This is really impactful. This is the first one of many. But we wanted to focus on STEAM and working with B-STEM and the amazing work with Dr. Miss Tina doing. I said Dr. Tina, it's coming. I'm manifesting it. But thank you so much, and y'all have a wonderful day.